Hey, what's up YouTube? This is the vlog. I am vlogging right now on my buddy's EOS RP, testing it out with his Canon 17-35. It's not really tracking my eyes because it wants to see like a full-on face here, but it does a decent enough job tracking my face. Let's see, get that here. There we go. So I'm actually got it locked in manual exposure right now because this camera actually has one feature that's, or it doesn't have one feature that's really missing, and that's the aperture priority mode or the shutter priority mode while you're in video mode, which is really interesting because I know the EOS R has that, but the RP doesn't. So I don't know why they would take that feature out. I feel like you could totally add that in with some firmware, but I'm interested like ISO 200 and the neutral profile. We've got like a pseudo C-Log profile on here, but it is a little too flat for my taste, and I don't like the way it plays with the hue spectrum, so I'm just sticking with the Canon colors for this one right now. I'm also at 1/50th shutter speed, and I am recording in the 1080p, just 24 frame per second mode that they thankfully added back to this camera. I know they took it out, which was a little weird, and now they put it back in. Actually, it's doing a really good job tracking my face now. I like this. Oh man, my arm's gonna get so tired doing this. I don't have my little vlogging tripod yet. That's some pretty flowers right there. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. This ISO 6400 actually doesn't look too bad. Today we're actually going to the FedEx place to pick up a couple of C500s and a C70 and a Canon XF705, I think. Yeah, I think the problem I have with the EOS profile is it doesn't have a natural clipping point. It just looks like it's gray. Right. And so when you grade it, it just all looks all messed up. Whereas just the Canon standard looks so much more natural. It's important to not go bad. Tiny pelican with khaki peanuts. There he goes. There's our hero with all the Canon gear. Canon Pro Services dog. Okay. Jacob abandoned me. I'm kidding. He's coming back for me. I'm putting this boy back. It's funny, it will track my mask sometimes if I do face tracking on with this guy. I figured out the secret to successful vlogging is not caring about what anyone thinks about you when you're rocking around with a camera and you look really silly and you're talking to yourself. That's okay, I always talk to myself anyway, so it's only a small leap. So today I want to talk a little bit about cinema cameras and what makes them important, as well as what is dynamic range. So I'm over here by myself now. Okay, so dynamic range is one of the main differences between the cinema lineup of cameras and the photo lineup of cameras for a lot of Canon cameras, Sony cameras, really any brand. What you see when you go to a camera like the new C70 is that it actually has about 16 stops of dynamic range, is what Canon claims. In reality, it's about 13 stops of dynamic range. It's really good, actually. Cameras like the Alexa claim about 14 stops of dynamic range, which is very impressive. There aren't many cameras that can get as close to the human eye as the Arri cameras. A camera like this only has about 9 to 10 stops of dynamic range while you're in the video mode. The dynamic range of the photo mode whilst recording RAW is much, much higher. You can get about 11 to 11.5 stops of dynamic range in the photo mode on this guy, which for the most part is all you need for photos, since the flexibility of RAW lets you play with the color so much more. And it's a lot more affordable of a tool because you're not spending 100 grand on a photo camera typically. So back to what makes a cinema camera unique. The C70 has a couple of tricks up its sleeve. One of them is built-in ND filters, which is probably one of the most valuable tools that I find for a lot of work, especially on sunny days. Unlike today, today is very cloudy. But having all of those ND filters, you can stack them and actually have 10 stops of ND, which is super cool. It's super useful for getting very cinematic footage. You can open up your aperture all the way if you want to go like f1.8, f1.4. Doing a lot of different lighting scenarios is really easy when you have built-in ND filters. So back to what makes a cinema camera important. One of the most iconic attributes of a cinema camera is its dynamic range. Having that extra dynamic range really helps create a more realistic image to what your eyes see. And having a wider color gamut is also very important to recreating colors as realistic as possible or as cinematic as possible. Film isn't necessarily going for realism, and a lot of digital sensors are actually emulating film more than they're emulating realism, which is pretty cool. A lot of the attributes of film actually include a desaturated highlight roll-off in many cases. A lot of codec film has this attribute. And so when I'm going in color grading and I want something to look a little more cinematic, I actually desaturate my highlights just a little bit more. Okay, I think Jacob's coming, so I'm going to go and unbox those C500s and C70s, or I think it's just one C70, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have that music in the background.